Hello, I'm Steve Maskery, and I've got lots of thin strips which are all exactly the same, and I can still count to 10. Welcome to Workshop Essentials. I need to cut a whole load of thin laminations to make some curved stock for a project that I'm on. And there are some particular issues to do with cutting thin pieces on the table saw. The first is that it's possible for your workpiece to get stuck inside the throat of the saw like that. And that's particularly true if your workpiece is short. It's less likely to happen with something this long. The second thing is that if my fence is only 3mm away from the blade, then my push stick is going to get very chewed up very quickly. You have no choice but to saw into your push stick a lot. And the third thing is that any piece of wood that's between the blade and the fence, like that, can quite easily get picked up by those rising teeth at the end of the cut, there, when those teeth are coming up out of the table, and it gets shot back behind me over there. So what can we do to stop those things from happening? Well, the first thing is we get rid of the throat plate and we replace it with a zero clearance throat plate like this. And I've got a video up there about how I build these things, how I make them. And that drops in there like that. The second thing is we don't want anything to be in contact with this fence here, for the risk of it being thrown out, whether it's a thin strip or a much wider piece of wood. So we install a short fence, like that. And this short fence stops just before top dead centre of the blade. So once it's gone past the last cutting tooth, you've got two separate pieces. And if there are tensions released, then the wood can bend and press against here. So by having it like this, if the wood does decide to bend outwards, then it moves into this empty space here and doesn't do any damage. And if it tries to bend inwards, then that's what the riving knife is for. And the other thing that we can do is not cut the thin strip between the blade and the fence at all. We can cut it outboard. And so to do that, I use a little gadget. Now, I first filmed this years and years and years ago, and it's still on YouTube, but it's practically unwatchable because the standards of the day meant that the resolution is now so low that you can hardly watch it. But it's still a good piece of kit. And it consists of a sliding bar like that with a stabilising foot on it. It locks in place with a Bristol lever, and underneath this Bristol lever, inside the fabrication of it, there is a pressure pad so that it doesn't chew up my scale here. The scale is just the first few inches of a sticky-backed ruler, and there's a cursor on it. And that fits in the mitre slot of my saw. Now, it was calibrated by making it a little bit longer than I needed, and I need my glasses for this. Set it to 0, so it reads 0, and then just trim it off on the saw so that it is 0. And so if I want 3mm strips like this, I can set that to 3, tighten it up, and now there is a 3mm gap between the end of the setting jig and the blade. So I can take my workpiece, this is a bit of an old church pew actually, that goes up against the setting gauge, the fence goes up against that. And now I can make my cut. Now, what happens when your workpiece begins to get a little bit narrow for convenience? Do we just chuck it away? No, we do not. We simply stick it to another board. This is going to be the next one, but it could be just a carrier board. It doesn't have to be the same thing, of course. Just get some double-sided tape and stick those together. And then we can just carry on as before. So if you find yourself in need of some thin pieces for a lamination or any other project, then consider making one of these. It's easy, it's accurate, and it saves your fingers. Thanks for watching. Enjoy your workshop. Cheerio.